And we're live once again. Welcome to the show. We're going to talk all about focus today. Do you have trouble focusing? I don't know. I saw something out my window.
Yeah, no, I got some music going on there. It's nice.
Our special royalty-free theme music. We won't get bounced by YouTube or Facebook for this music, but it sounds groovy. If focus is an issue for you, right? I saw somebody going behind you there. I want to know what's up with that. If focus is an issue for you, like I know it is for many of our audience, you're going to love today's show. You need some great tips about how to focus and how to use that to leverage your life and do a better job with everything. Hello, everyone. Welcome again to the Scaling Up Business Podcast. Before we get started, a little mention about a sponsor I'm so happy about, sweetprocess.com. If you find that running your business is tough, that people are bombarding you, you can't get to work on the business because you're always in the business, you need to give things away. You got to get your processes out. You got to people trained. You got to get them answering your own questions. That's where sweetprocess.com comes in. It's a place, it's a tool, it's an online software app to let you document the processes, train people on the processes, and let them actually refine them together. Get the whole team collaborating on leveling up, leaning those things out, improving the process over time. You can get everything, all your procedures and your steps and your references and all that kind of stuff in Sweet Process. And we've got a special offer for our listeners. Sweetprocess.com will double the time, the free trial time, without any credit card entry to get started. Go to sweetprocess.com/scaling up to sign up now. No credit card required. And that's all you need to use to get set up and start to actually give away some of that stuff so you're not trying to do everything yourself. Hi again, everyone. I'm Bill Gallagher. I'm host of the show, one of the scaling coaches. This show is all about how to scale and grow your business, no matter what the economy is doing, no matter what industry or what part of the world that you're in. And you can find now hundreds of episodes with great guests like Erik Qualman or Tom Peters or Jeff Smart or any number of other really brilliant folks on the show, and all the kinds of things that go into the Scaling Up framework are there. You'll find all of that back catalog and more at scalingcoach.com. We've got downloads, we've got their tools, the tips, everything there at scalingcoach.com. Join me now as we talk to Erik Qualman, who's connecting in from Austin, Texas. Guys, you should know that Erik is a best-selling author, a killer speaker. If you were at our last summit, you know he just delivers again and again. He's got 6 best-selling books, I think now. He's performed in over 50 countries, or spoken, right? Performed, spoken, and helped and reached over 50 million people. Second most likable author in the world behind Harry Potter's J.K. Rowling. And he's the host of the Super You podcast. His work has been used and featured by the National Guard, NASA, NBC, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, all-around groovy guy. Welcome to the show, Erik.
No, honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. Pardon me. So we are going to talk all about your latest book, right? Which is all about how to focus in a world that's pulling for anything but focus. And it'll be tough to focus on that for me. I know I struggle with this day in and day out. Like, what was I doing, honey?
No, you're not alone. That's the most important thing to understand. You're not alone.
Right. And we're also going to tell people the amazing story of how valuable it was to get your teeth kicked out, right? Or knocked out.
Yeah, no, one of the best things that ever happened to me. I know it sounds crazy, but it is one of the best things that ever happened to me, getting my teeth knocked out.
We'll finish the show with that. So tell folks a little bit about your background. How did you come to write this book? Like, what leads you to this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's an old saying that if you want an idea for a book, it's write a book. But chicken and egg thing, my first book, Socialnomics, eventually led to this book, which is almost an anti-venom to the first book. So Socialnomics was telling people at the time, if you can imagine, MySpace was bigger than Facebook. But I was trying to tell people that, hey, this is going to change the way that we do business, change the way we communicate, change the way the elections are decided, which at the time people thought social media was just for teenagers. Now, fast forward. So basically telling people get into social media. It is important. It's not just for teenagers. And then all of a sudden now we're in this, here we are now. And so you've got focus as an anti-venom from a standpoint of people got into social, but they got too far into their phones. And so they became super unfocused in this unfocused world. And so that's why I needed it. Like you mentioned, your wife was laughing. I needed to focus. And then I started to talk to more and more people, whether it's a school teacher, stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home dad, whether it's small business, a startup, whether it was a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, they all wrestled with the same thing. And so I thought it'd be helpful to go under a project where I combine kind of the street science, like me being the guinea pig, with the institutional research, marry those together and kind of provide that for the audience. Hey, this is what worked, what didn't work for me. And hopefully you can figure out what works and doesn't work for you when it comes to focus. And it's funny for someone like me to write this because I've been in the digital space now 27 years. And I worked at Yahoo back when they were kind of the Facebook of the day. And then I was head of marketing at Travelzoo, took that company from private to public, and it was one of the top performing stocks on the NASDAQ, still around today, publicly traded. But it's really fascinating for me to kind of combine those two. I call it the Flintstones and the Jetsons coming together. And as you've seen me in person, a lot of your audience, I talk about it's the Flintstones in the Jetsons. It's the marry of those two. It's the offline, online. And now in a pandemic, you throw gasoline on this digital transformation, so that hyper accelerates things. And now companies are having me come in to talk about wellness because guess what happens? You've got the megabytes. Some didn't transform fast enough. Now they're being forced to move forward 5 years overnight. But the human capacity can't take it. Your employees, there's mental strain when all of a sudden you're working from home 24/7. Your kids are at home. You're ordering everything online. Major shifts. And so it's just been a fascinating journey. So hopefully what we talk about here today is going to help your audience.
You know, my dogs bark and interrupt every time a delivery shows.
I didn't hear them.
The leaf blowers come around the outside, right, in the middle of my recordings. And then every now and then a contractor shows up. Oh, we just take some measurements of the back pad or whatever, right? It's harder than ever. And I'll be on the phone with the CEO and some kid comes running in. Daddy, you know, I want this or that, right? It's unbelievable how challenging it's become. And then I was joking around, holding my phone up while you were talking, right? Yep. There's all these, pings and dings and alerts and things like that that have been going off. I've been getting like 4 or 5 Clubhouse invites on my watch. Stop. I haven't figured out how to combine our live streams with a Clubhouse room at the same time. That's like next on the thing. That'll be an interesting
That'd be good. Are you on Clubhouse? Have you hit it? Yeah. You like it?
At Bill Gal on Clubhouse. I really do. At first, like all things, I was like, what the hell? But then, you know what it's like? For me, it's like talk radio, where I can either choose to interact or not interact, right? And I have enough friends and people on there that I can come in and talk if I want, or I can browse around and listen to topics. So
that's great.
But, if you don't need to wear pants while you're in Zoom, you don't have to wear anything in Clubhouse.
I'm not doing it. I'm not putting them down in my pants. I do have pants on. But
today, anyway, for me.
It might be sweatpants, but there are pants.
That's funny. Who's the guy? I won't make it. So the book is all about focus and how to focus. And you've got some great stories about this. I thought your first one was actually really interesting as we were getting ready for the show, talking about swimming and doing triathlons. You don't know, but I did 45 triathlons and marathons in a day, right?
That's crazy.
Right. And you look like you're still doing them. I look like I used to do them. And I dealt with all those same kinds of things of the training and that. And so talk about what it was like for you.
Yeah, from a triathlon standpoint, or from a book standpoint, or from basketball?
Like all of it, right?
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, one thing we talked, just so I'll finish the story so I don't forget about it, is like, how could getting your teeth knocked out be the best thing that happened for you? And so when you go through the Focus Project, and when I went through it myself, I realized I've got to shift that mindset. Is my focus on fortune or misfortune? Am I focused on things happening for me,
teeth story now?
What's that?
You're going to tell the teeth knocked out story?
I'll tell a teeth knocked out story. Yeah.
Save that for later. We'll finish
Okay.
this that one.
Got it. So yeah, a lot of your focus is really just where your focus goes, energy flows. And like one story, whether it's training for sports, and then we'll talk about me playing at Michigan State, maybe at the end, we talk about the teeth with Coach Izzo, but it's really about my wife. This is a funny story from the book. So I'm in this focus project. So those that aren't familiar with it, basically I wanted to focus on one thing per month. So I got excited going, man, what would it be like if I was focused on sales for a month? And I call it growth. And you guys obviously know that. But when you look at it, so that first month, you got to pick something that allows you to have this 12-month project. So the one thing I always ask myself, what's the one thing if I do it well, makes everything else either easier or unnecessary? So I go, in order to embark on this fanciful focus project, I'm going to have to crush sales for that first month. So I don't have to worry about the business. And so just by focusing on sales, and I screwed up 4 times, meaning that over the course of a year, I would start and say, okay, I'm going to focus on sales for an hour a day, just sales an hour a day. That's all I have to do. And then the month would go by and I'd tally up how many hours I spent, 17 minutes. So I go, all right, restart. So basically 4 false starts. Then we finally, the 5th time, get it rolling. And just by that hour a day, focusing on growth, whatever your growth might look like, is all of a sudden, we not only had a record month, but a record year for that month. Like I already had a record amount of sales. Just that is the power of focus. It won't always work like that, because I was sitting there going, man, this is daunting this first month, because if it doesn't work, I can't do this project, because it obviously doesn't work. But it worked a lot bigger than I ever thought, just at that scale, as you guys talk about, more than I ever thought. But one funny story that came out of it is midway through the project, I was at home and I'm trying to get something for my daughter. She's 8. One of my daughters is 8. I've got 2 daughters. And I'm pulling on the drawer, and you've probably experienced this before, all of you listening. The drawer is jammed because it's just crammed with stuff. And I'm trying to get my hand in there, undo it, open it up, get her what she needs. And then I start displacing stuff. And lo and behold, I open the drawer next to it. Glorious, wide open. It's completely blank. So I start moving half of the objects over there. And my 8-year-old kind of pauses. And she looks at me and she goes, Daddy, you can't put that stuff in that drawer. And I go, yeah, I'm doing it right now. It's wide open. She goes, no, that's Mommy's drawer. And I go, yeah, but there's nothing in here. I'm going to put this stuff in here so it doesn't jam. And she goes, no. You can't put that there. Don't tell you I didn't warn you. And then sure enough, my wife comes home. And she goes, yeah, that's my drawer. You got to keep it empty. I go, what? What are we doing? And she goes, it's really just my way to make sure I haven't overstuffed my life. I've got to have at least one drawer in the house that's empty. And if I had,
yeah.
And so if I hadn't been going through this focus project, I would have thought she's crazy, or we're both crazy. But then I said, that's genius. And so it's just always a reminder to me to make sure that respect that capacity and focus on the big versus the busy.
I think about that all the time. Is this a productive? I mean, there are things that I do that are definitely not focused, right? Things that I do that are almost pure time wasters, but I treat them like that's my little self-indulgence. That's my mental health break. But I'm pretty clear about that. And then if I do it too much, of course, then it's the total time waste.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And like Warren Buffett, we're flipping through his calendar. If you flip through his calendar, it's almost completely blank. And he goes, that's intentional. I need the space to think. And he's good friends with Bill Gates, and Bill Gates was kind of going, I always thought a good CEO just crams their day, like with everything, like that my team needs. I'm going to cram my schedule 100%, not even enough time to go to the bathroom sometimes. And then Bill had the epiphany through Warren that actually it's somewhere in that middle. It's that combination. It's making sure you have that space to think, that luxury, and you've got to be intentional to block off that time. And as leaders listening to this, easier said than done. It literally has to be intentional. We call it cowboy and cowgirl scheduling, meaning you got to fence off time for yourself or time for that deep thinking, and then also allow for wide open spaces, because you don't know what's going to happen that day. You've seen it in 2020 and 2021. You don't know what explosion is going to happen in the morning that throws your day out of kilter. So it's important to kind of have those protective pieces in there.
So I preached a long time for the leaders that I coach and in some of my talks about productivity and that kind of thing about booking in time for emergencies and interruptions. And I've typically had like 2:30 to 4 emergencies and interruptions time over the years. It changes at different stages of my life, that kind of thing. And first of all, when I throw that to people, they're like, that's just insanity. But it's a little bit like the empty drawer
Yeah.
for me. Like, of course, my emergencies and interruptions don't happen between 2:30 and 4. It's just that I have booked in time to have them. So then when they inevitably do occur, I can move things around.
No, it's
Uh,
smart.
and if I take it out the day and I overbook and I don't have that in there, then I know that that day is really like everything's dialed in and I'm at risk. And I might not be taking care of myself in that day. Like, but that's a practice. So I was struck also by you were trying to train for the triathlon, doing swimming and paying attention to your kids and watching that. Talk to us about that one.
Yeah, I mean, anyone training for anything, it doesn't have to be a triathlon, but what I was doing was trying to swim. So I'm
Yeah.
swimming, and my daughter's, it's a small enough pool to where it's got length, but also it's very narrow from the standpoint that I can actually see my kids, who at the time pretty young. They were, I think, 6 and 8. So they can
Yeah.
swim, but I need to keep an eye on them.
Yeah.
And of course, kids being kids, they want to kind of swim in your lane. They want to play with you and sometimes accidentally kick you in places you don't want to be kicked while you're swimming these laps. And my old mindset would have been to get upset and say, get out of my lane. I've got to swim here. But then the new mindset was the focus shifted to, hey, they're not going to be young forever. And the fact they want to play with dad is actually a good thing. So you'll hear about work-life integration, work-life harmony. In this case, it's actually integration with some training.
Right.
Is just how do I integrate that? And so instead of getting mad, stopping, which I would have done in the past, and tell them to stay in their lane, is it the metaphor struck me that that's how we treat life sometimes, is that we're going to have people swim in and out of our lanes. And so it's about embracing that and integrating that as much as we can. And so we can still maintain focus, but then we integrate those components and those people as best we can. Now, in some instances, you need someone that's not a positive influence on your life. You need them to get out of their lane, but that's usually hopefully few and far between. It's really about understanding how to do that integration. And so in that moment, I kind of let them swim with me. And it's actually better training because I'd try to speed up to avoid them when they're trying to kind of submerge and get me. I would actually time it so then I'd speed up my cadence. So it's actually a nice break in the pace. And as my daughters would say, it's not all rainbows and unicorns every day, but it's really about trying to make that as much as you can, kind of take those lemons and make that lemonade and do that integration, whether you call that integration, whether you call that harmony, whether some people call it wellness. You think about focus. Focus, where you focus, your energy flows. So where your focus goes, energy flows. And so we're actually now working with companies, crazy enough, a lot of them are having wellness weeks and wellness campaigns. So here you've got this digital leadership person, me, then you write the focus project. I have no idea this pandemic's coming. Pandemic hits. All of a sudden you realize all these people are struggling. Oh, wow, here's the marriage of that digital leadership and that focus, and here's how we handle it.
It's funny. You share the story as we're preparing for the thing, and we're talking about it now. And a couple of things came to mind right away. One is, if you've ever been in one of these events, it's actually really valuable because in the event there are people swimming around you and they're kicking, and they from out of nowhere suddenly your face mask gets kicked off and they're clawing over top of you, and sometimes you're clawing over top of them, and like especially in the beginning of a swim in an actual event, like there's actually value in the distractions and that. So there's intentionality that you could bring to it. And then as you're telling it now, I was struck by that integration thing. And today's my dad's birthday. And he would have been 81, but he passed in 2008. And one of the last things in the last couple of weeks before he passed, he asked me if I would go for a bike ride with him. And one of the great regrets I had is that I was like, no, Dad, I'm training for an event. It needs to be a good bike ride. I can't just lollygag around the island with you. And I said, no. And, I'm really overall complete with my dad and, good relationship and even now. But like there's an opportunity there. That was one moment. I have many, many great ones. But like one little sweet thing, like take that, find a way to integrate it and combine it, because there will be like those distractions. What could you focus on and where could you combine? It was really moving as you were sharing that, thinking about that.
No, I mean, I love sharing your story, and sorry about your dad's passing, but it's really, sometimes it's those moments that strike us to go, okay, let's reset. And so that's what the hope is. And I wrote the book as well for myself. Like, I got to reference this thing all the time. I'm not a focus wizard. I've gotten much, much better at it. So it's really about that 1% improvement each and every day. And so it's a reminder that integration. So what does that look like? Because I like to give examples.
Yeah.
So for your audience, if you're not doing it, you should do this. You should write physical letters. And so if you write a physical letter, it's actually therapeutic. But whether that's for a family member, whether that's for a business partner, I recommend both, client, prospect, whatever it might be, it allows you to stand out. But that integration, especially for those that have kids, this is what integration looks like. It doesn't mean you have to have kids. This is just one example. So if I write Thanksgiving letters every Thanksgiving because it's a non-religious holiday, it stands out from all the other cards that are dumped a month later. It's less likely to get lost in the mail. I'm thanking people. So it all makes sense.
Yeah.
So I do this. It takes a long time to handwrite all these hundreds of letters. And so I write them, but I like to kind of draw. But I go, why don't I have my daughters draw this stuff and have them colored in and have them put the stamp on the envelope, have them put the return label. And so all of a sudden that becomes that integration point to where we're doing a project together. They're enjoying it. I'm moving things forward that I need to move forward. And so very well said with your dad. How do you integrate that? Yep.
Yeah. My son, by the way, commented, and I remembered the two. And then he became a runner with me, and we went on to run a number of events together. Right.
Oh,
but
cool.
In the beginning, he was, 8 or 7 when we started running. And it really took something to teach him to like focus on the next lamppost or something to run to when he doesn't want to anymore. I think we all struggle with that. I think there are maybe people who are really, really good at it, but I think the vast majority of us struggle to some degree. And that's what I love about the ideas here is that there's something to learn and to develop, a muscle to develop around focus, especially if you are prone to lots of ideas, prone to lots of input and stimulus. And our environment is so much calling for that to this day. So you talk also about saying no to things. Talk a little bit more. Tell us some of the stories around saying no, learning what to say no to and where. And
yeah, I mean, I always reflect when I get done with a book. I reflect and what did I learn? And this was a project that became a book. And so I was sitting there going, what are the top 3 things that I learned? And the first one, you just mentioned it, that focus is very, 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 very hard. But that focus can be learned. It can become a habit. Now you have to have a purpose behind that habit. We'll get into the 3 Ps in a second: purpose, and then you move to process and then progress. But the second thing I learned, which is process, is that really good people at what they do, they're better at focusing than most others. But when I sat down and talked to them and said, what do you struggle with the most? It's the opposite side of that coin. They say focus. So I'm a little better than focusing, but that's the number one struggle, is to stay that edge a little better than most. And the one thing that rose to the top is when I talk about process. So that's the second thing, is that, successful people are better at saying, they don't rely on willpower. They rely on process and systems. And that number one system is basically saying no to almost everything, which seems un-American, but it's actually a smart thing if it's not an emphatic yes, it needs to be an emphatic no. That you need to treat your yeses like inventory. By saying no today, you're allowed to say yes tomorrow. And then for those that are super people pleasers, which most of us are that are listening to this, because it usually does as well, you've got to understand the mindset that if you say yes to everyone, you're basically saying no to everyone because you don't have that capacity. And then the third thing that I learned was that you've got to go for progress, not perfection. So meaning when I looked at New Year's resolutions that married up to the New Year's resolutions, the top failed New Year's resolutions and the top resolutions themselves, they're basically the same, also married to the top 10 selling books. So there's a huge crossover, which makes sense. And by the middle of January, 90% of us have failed their resolution. And so it's really about progress, not perfection, meaning that when we do a New Year's resolution, all of a sudden I might say that I don't want to drink coffee, I don't want to drink wine. So you try to 100% cut out coffee and wine, and that's why it fails, because you've tried to go for perfection rather than just progress. Progress meaning, all right, maybe I'm not going to drink coffee every day. I'm going to stop on Friday not drinking that coffee. And so those are the top 3 things that I learned. Was number 1 is that it can become a habit, that it's hard, but it can become a habit, but it has to be a purpose behind it. 2, people that are successful are better at focusing than us, not because they have inherent DNA or went to college or did something for it. They don't rely on willpower. They rely on systems or processes. So that's the second P, the processes. And then 3rd, it's about progress, not perfection when it comes to focus. About 1% better each and every day with that focus. And so you're going to have days when you're not focused, and that's okay. You got to accept that and then move forward. It's not a natural line. It's just a straight trajectory, but it's more of a roller coaster. So you got to make sure that trends like this, but just like in business, you're going to have these dips, and then you keep going up.
Yeah, I think that's a really useful thing to notice, that it's a muscle you can develop. It's a habit you can develop to get into it, but it takes work, especially for some of us who are more prone to that than others. I lead with ideation, and I wake up with ideas, and I have more ideas and more ideas. And I've just learned with time to let most of them go and not to chase them. But there are times in my day where I have like free permission to just wander and click and think and walk around and like do whatever, and to let that sort of roam. But then a lot of it, I let it go after that. I don't pursue it. I don't carry that forward unless it relates to something I'm working on. So I get obsessed with a particular idea. I start to go down it, and then I realize it ties into one of my quarterly priorities or annual initiatives. And then I actually like really indulge it, right? Commit to things, take things on, because but others are like, I could tell you about this SUV or that SUV or some new thing or whatever. It just had nothing to do with anything. It just amuses me. Like,
yeah, you need those breaks. So that's good. And then one thing that just jogged my memory might be helpful for the audience is you've got to create 90% of you are making to-do lists because you're successful. They're good. Right. Keep making them. Right. But what I want you today, just look at the to-do list, and this is going to give you, some of you guys are going to start sweating just by me mentioning this. You don't even take the action to do this. I know as a type A person, and a lot of listeners are type A, this is going to give you some heart palpitations, but it's look at that to-do list and then write the word not at the top of it. Just write the word not. And then look down that list and then just pick one thing off that list and move that over. And that's your new to-do list for today. And so again, it's good to practice that. It's going to give a lot of you like pause. You could call it a not to-do list. You can call it a not yet list, but just make sure you do that.
You're saying that people should actually create a not doing list.
Yeah, I always joke, not for your kids, but for yourself. And, yeah, just like, here's what I'm not going to do.
Love that, right? Cowbell for you. We often put those up in our team sessions when we're in person. We haven't been doing, Lucy's in the background, our producer and assistant client coordinator. We haven't been doing enough of that with our online sessions, but we frequently have in our in-person team sessions a big area that's not doing. And as we work through the ideas over a couple of days with the team, we move things over to say, we brainstorm that, but we're not doing that. And just so we're really clear, we're saying no to a bunch of things. And it's a hard muscle to develop, but it's really liberating to say, I'm not cleaning out that shed. I'm leaving that shed alone, or whatever it is that's like occupying angst and like whatever things you think you should do, to say, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, no, it's great. And Arianna Huffington, when you look at, she said something that's very profound, is that she goes, that's great. You've got a not to-do list, but also look at that not to-do list, or you can call it a not yet list, whatever works well for you. And she said, sometimes you can look at that and then take something off. That's the best way to complete something, is decide you're absolutely never, ever going to do that. So whether you just move it off. I mean, again, sounds un-American, but it'll actually lead you to be more successful by doing that and paring things down.
Well, it's a great tie-in also to our sponsor, sweetprocess.com. You want to build processes around things that help you to focus. And if you build out a great process, right, and you want to focus on progress and making it better and better, tying into that, you want just not you working on making the progress better, but the whole team. So if you could get a place where you could document all the process, procedures, and your rules and that kind of thing for the business, and then get everybody trained on them, and then get them making them better over time, making them progressing them, getting them up and improving them with time. Sweetprocess.com is that kind of a place. So one source of truth where everybody in the team, the whole company can go not only to get trained, to refer to it, to be retrained, cross-trained, that kind of thing. And a reminder that we've got a special offer for listeners, viewers of the show. It's double the normal time. So free trial time goes from 14 days to 28 days, an extra couple of weeks to play with it. You don't even have to put in your credit card, I'm told. So sweetprocess.com/scaling up is where you get that special offer. Go there, play with it, see if it wouldn't make a difference for you and your business. Before we forget that kind of thing, talk to us about getting your teeth knocked out. That was, people enjoy that.
Yeah, the premise of this is just remember that things happen for you, not to you. It took me a long time to realize this, but it's great having younger kids because they'll tell you, hey, Daddy, why are these teeth a different color than your other ones? And so I was a huge basketball fanatic growing up, and I was cut from our team as a junior in high school. So it's the only thing I share with Michael Jordan. He was cut as a sophomore, but I still had the dream. And so I got to Michigan State and I said, how do I get involved? Like, how do I get involved? I know I'm not going to be on the team, but how do I get involved? Oh, you can be a manager, which is basically a water boy. And Michigan State's top 10 program. So you even have to try out to be the water boy. So it's crazy. And so I was fortunate to make that. And then, I didn't let the dream die.
You carry the jug without spilling it? Or
yeah, you get out there, you wipe down the floor, you'll see people at halftime. Now you'll be very selective attention. Next time you watch a basketball game, you'll see people that are wiping the floor because they have the huddles on the floor, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually you're basically the COO by the time you're a senior. You're actually doing a lot of stuff the coaches do. But here I am, water boy, haven't given up on the dream, work out hard, blah, blah, blah. Long story longer. Occasionally you get into practice. So junior year, looking back, I was good enough to make it junior year, but I didn't have the confidence. I didn't why me? I was cut from my high school team. But they're like, Qualman, get in practice. We're down a couple guys. We need a body. And I get in there and I am having the day of my life. I cannot miss. Like everything's going right. And I go, this is unbelievable. They're going to say he's got to be on the team. And then I take an errant elbow and it literally was born with a couple teeth missing. So I had a fake tooth already in there. So it hits me and I'm thinking I could feel like stuff in my hand. So I put that on the side, but I'm not going to come out of the game, the scrimmage. And I'm also thinking that's just the fake tooth that I've had since kind of I was younger. And I keep playing. And then all of a sudden the trainer calls me over at 20 minutes. He's like, hey, what's going on? Like you still have stuff coming out. He looks in there and goes, whoa, 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 whoa. There's a lot of teeth missing in here. Let's get you to the dentist. So on the whole ride to the dentist, and I won't bore you with the pain because they can't give you a painkiller. I got to put the tooth back in. I won't bore the audience with that. But the whole time I'm thinking, I cannot believe this happened to me. That this was my chance. Mm-hmm. And then fast forward the next year when I do walk on and get a scholarship to be on the team, is that actually is the best thing ever happened to me because Coach Izzo, he's in the Hall of Fame. He's still coaching, but he's in the Hall of Fame. He built that entire program around grit. And I know from a business standpoint, everyone's starting to understand that it's about the grit that really wins. And so he saw the grit that day. He actually said, Qualman, the next day at practice, he goes, Qualman, I don't know if you're the dumbest guy I know or the toughest guy I know. Somewhere in the middle, I think, Qualman. But I realized that, and talking with Coach many years later, he's like, that was the moment that actually got me that position on the team. And here I was thinking that happened to me when actually looking back, it's the best thing that happened for me.
This notion of silver linings and what's the actual outcome of it. I know so many people that have said, if that didn't happen to me, if I hadn't endured that hardship or that guy hadn't been such a jerk and told me I never would win, I never would have been pushed and gone on to do those things. And who knows what would have actually happened. But I think there's a lot of times at first we feel sorry for ourselves and then we lean into it. And for the last year, everything's massively dislocated, disrupted, interrupted on a global scale, delayed. What comes out of that? I don't know. I was really excited to go speak for over a couple days with a group on Santorini. And it was really heartbreaking that was delayed once a year and now a second year and it's pushed out. But over that time, did my exposure and visibility to that group improve? Did the material get even better and better that I was going to do with that group? Probably. Right. And there are things that we got better at. Time and again this year, we're looking at these things that happen to us and throw us off our game. But if we can look for what's the opportunity of that, right? What's the silver lining of 2020 and 2021 is off to a fantastic start, right? It's not like all the bad stuff just ended last year. We're still dealing with stuff, right? I still can't figure out how to get my in-laws vaccinated. And they're like 90 and in their 80s and with significant health issues, right? Like, what the heck? I think there's so much to be learned from that and to think about what is that. We got better at video this year. Our audience grew substantially. Our number of clients grew this year. So many things happened as a result of this that could be considered a silver lining. Now, many of our clients also and some of their people were impacted, right? But what might come out of that for them? Maybe they finally got onto something that really mattered to them, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. It's one of those things that it's not all silver linings by any means, but I always talk to people, I go, you've got to not waste this opportunity because the other side of that isn't doing you any good. Like if you just if their focus is on that darkness, that's not helping anything. And so it's really, why is this happening? What can I learn in the moment? Sometimes you can't learn until you're through it, just like the teeth story. But in the moment, what is happening that's positive? And try to write those things down and take advantage of it as much as you can. So don't waste the opportunity that's now in front of us. Again, it's not about being a Pollyanna. It's just like there's not much helping when you're on that other side of that edge.
So if you want to know more and read this book or the other books, go to equalman.com, and you'll find out more of Erik. See all of Erik's speaking in his books and all the groovy stuff that you've got. It's always a pleasure. You're so engaging. You bring such energy and aliveness to us. It's a pleasure to talk to you. So guys, go to equalman.com. And you'll find Erik's info there and that kind of thing. So I want to give some shout outs and special thanks. If our show helped you with something, please share it with somebody else right now. If you like it and subscribe to it, and you send us a picture of your subscription, like screenshot the little thing where you subscribe to our show, we will send you some unreleased tools that only a few other coaches have that aren't in our free downloads yet. You'll get early access to stuff that won't be out for a very long time, a whole bunch of extra like worksheets and that kind of thing. So just send an email showing us that you subscribe to the show. Could be anywhere, Facebook, YouTube, our website, whatever. Send that to info@scalingcoach.com and put subscribed in the subject line, and we will get those new tools out to you. I want to give special thanks to Vern Harnish, the author and creator of the original Scaling Up framework and the Rockefeller habits that led into it. Big shout out to Lucy Summers, who's in the background, getting our show ready all the time, promoting it, releasing it, getting our guests ready and scheduled and all that kind of thing. And to Albert Burge, who edits the audio in the show as we put out the audio at Popfly Productions. And our show notes get written up by Ein Kadina and proofread by Tim McGowan. Thanks again to everyone for joining the show today, and keep scaling up. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Have an amazing day. Reach out if we can help with